Hey guys, what's up? So, I'm making a makeup video for you guys tonight since last night's video was so horribly lazy. Uh, the reason you see Captain America in the frame is because we spent the last 2 days doing a lot of cleaning, the tail end of my vacation, and we're just doing some house cleaning and whatnot, rearranging things, and gotta find a good place for Cap because wifey doesn't want him in the bedroom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you guys about the 1-inch punch and why it's important and what it teaches you, and that it's not just a cool trick. Since I don't have a heavy bag here, I've hung up a piece of paper. It is literally a piece of paracord that I staple gun to the ceiling and tied a knot and put on a paper clip and put on a sheet of notebook paper. You can't see it too well because of the angle, but you get the idea. And of course, notebook paper is cheap, and my wife have been accumulating notebook paper since our college days, so 10 years of notebook paper. We've got a lot, so I got a few sheets here just in case we tear one. Now, in the world of striking, there are a lot of things that you have to take into consideration. We're not going to go into all of that, but the big thing is you want to leave the energy in your opponent, which means you want to disconnect your punch from your opponent as quickly as possible, but after you get the depth of penetration that you need to reach his insides. You have to send a vibrational shockwave throughout his body. Just a quick lesson in the dynamics of impact. I guess they call it force dynamics. I'm not really a physicist. I just enjoy some of that theorizing. When a bullet enters your body, all it's doing is poking a hole. Unless, of course, all of the energy dump happens inside of you. If the energy dump happens on the outside, the bullet breaks apart too quickly, or hits, a mass of clothing, a protective vest or whatever. It doesn't do sufficient damage on the inside. Likewise, if a bullet passes through you, all it's done is poke a hole. And if it has the energy to continue traveling through you, that's a lot of wasted energy. The energy delivered through the explosion in the chamber of the gun has been wasted, not on the target, but just on flight. It's not a very efficient use of energy. So you want the energy dump inside the body. And the cool thing is when you get the energy dump inside the body the way it's supposed to, like with a 223 round, when the bullet goes in and frags or stops, mushrooms or whatever, if it's a hollow point, it's not the hole that it poked that causes the damage. It's the vibration of that force that, for lack of a better term, liquefies, mushifies the internal organs and causes organ death and thus human death, systemic failure and death. But that shockwave is the important part. Now, it's the same thing with your strikes. Your strike has to deliver the energy into the person's body, otherwise it's not effective. So if you have these quick tippy-tap strikes like you see in a lot of snappy styles, like traditional Americanized karate or taekwondo or anything, where they don't really go for penetration, but they're just going for scoring points on a target in point competition, that's not going to cut it. All you're going to do is piss somebody off by slapping them around. Yeah, you might bruise their skin, but it's not going to cause them to stop the fight. If anything, it's going to just make you lose the fight faster. Likewise, if your punches and kicks cause your opponent to fly away, unless of course that was your intention, you're not delivering energy effectively inside of their bodies, because by making them move externally, what you've done is now committed to a pushing force and not a striking or penetrating force. So that being the case, pushing them is kind of like an exit wound on a bullet. That pushing, driving motion is creating it's creating wasted energy by turning the energy into something that pushes their mass around as opposed to just vibrating inside of them. Now there are lots of techniques, and we're not going to go over all sorts of techniques. Like I said, we're going to talk about the 1-inch punch. And with the 1-inch punch, this isn't the best target. It's very, very lightweight. I mean, you're going to make it move no matter what. But the cool thing is, when I punch it, if I just hit it, it just, because I didn't go very far into it, there wasn't much depth, it just fluttered. If I really blast into it with more of a drive, well, it flew away. It was enough to break what was holding it, but that's all it did. I turned a punch into a driving force that doesn't really get the job done. So what we've got to learn is two things. We've got to learn how to apply the force behind the drive with the energy behind the snap. You have to combine the two modalities. And by combining the two, you get the most force out of your punch that's actually delivered inside of the opponent. And the 1-inch punch is a good way to train that, because the 1-inch punch isn't a push. You don't go here, and that isn't going to work. But if I hold it here, put some snap into the hips, and we put some snap into the arm, and I feel for my penetration, much more of a flutter. And you heard it this time, right? So from here, it's a lot better. My hand disconnected with the paper as the energy was traveling into it. So the motion was there because the paper is extremely light. I mean, there are a multitude of physical forces happening that change what's going on, and will direct how the ultimate end product proceeds. But what we're looking at there then is how to drive power through both, through a power drive and through the speed snap, speed and power together, right? So this is where the 1-inch punch comes in. The 1-inch punch is literally delivered, 1 inch away. Some people will start here, which is more like a, like a 3-inch punch or 4-inch punch, depending on how big your banana hands are. So you can start here and work on just curling in and getting it, or you can do like I do and start from the first knuckle, which is still a little bit more than an inch. But here's a secret: I don't start with a full extended half fist. I start here. So the distance from here to here is, it's about an inch. I haven't measured it, but if you took the measurement, cut across here to line up with the knuckles, it's about an inch. So from there, I've got my knuckles lightly resting on the target, not putting any pressure on them. And I can't just do that, okay? You're not going to deliver anything. If you want to deliver anything, here's where the 1-inch punch has its magic: in the hips. You learn how to use your hips. In Chinese, they call it yuma. It's uniting the upper and lower halves. Ma is stance. I'm terrible with my Chinese. I don't remember what exactly yuma translates out to, but ma is used for stance. But the idea is that your punches drive from your legs. And so you've got torquing, you've got rising and sinking, and then you've got driving, the forward, forward and backward linear motion. It's three-dimensional, right? And using that, I'm using just a simple forward stance, nothing fancy. Driving from the rear leg, I want a long power chain, even though the punch is done. Some people will call this short chain punching, because the power chain is much shorter. I'm not driving from back here to get momentum behind the punch. And what this teaches us is how to really use our lower half, how to use our hips, how to use our legs, how to use our core in the punch and not just punch with our arm. Punching with the arm is a surefire way to just piss somebody off. So from here, if I just punch with my arm, all I'm getting is a flutter. But if I throw a little hip into it, I get a lot more. And that's, yeah, it's not going to be as powerful as a full-on punch, and that's fine. This isn't really meant as a combat punch, though there are certainly times when you will need to use short chain punching. I mean, you can't throw long bombs from a clinch. The clinch is where you throw the short chain punching, but it doesn't look like that. You know, it's in here and you're throwing, you know, body shots and tiny hooks and whatnot. Short chain punching is something you need to train, but what you're learning here is how to throw this with this. That's what's important, because that's what's going to drive the power of your punch. So I know I've rambled on a little bit on this, but this is really more of an instructional video at this point. I just want you to understand that the 1-inch punch isn't just a cool trick, though I assure you it is very cool. But it's really to teach you how to throw your ass into your punch. That's all I got for you tonight. I decided I didn't want to be lazy despite having a much heavier workload today than yesterday. So I will talk to you guys next time. Good journey.